What's going on, everybody, and welcome to this month's episode of... Welcome back to Feenux Fashion Frames Fridays, everyone. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend. I was excited to look through your guys' submissions this week, and I gotta say, you guys knocked it out of the park. Unfortunately, there weren't many to choose from, but I think that's my fault for not reminding you guys. Those of you that did submit, though, thank you so much. It was awesome to see all of your creations. As a reminder, the theme this time was spring-themed Warframes. I was looking for anything that reminded you guys of spring, or kind of had that sort of like pastel-y sort of theme. Now, enough messing around in this tower defense. Let me hop over to the dojo, and we'll get started with our first submissions. Much better. As you can see here, I've gotten into the spirit of this competition with my Pastel Volt Prime, and I mean, you know, not to toot my own horn or anything, but it's a good thing I'm judging this and not entering as a contestant, if you catch my drift. Nah, just kidding. Anyway, let's see what you guys had for me this week. Our first set of entries comes from the PC platform, and our first submission comes from user Hazan, and he says, I chose Saren in her deluxe skin because she to me is a blossoming flower in the spring that is beautiful and also very powerful. Very nice submission, Hazan. Your Saren was absolutely gorgeous, man. I like the attention to detail, and I felt your reasoning was very creative. Thank you so much for submitting. Our next PC submission comes from user Kyle Craig, and is this fantastic-looking Oberon. Here's what he has to say. When I think of spring, I think of the trees regaining their leaves after a long winter, and no frame looks more like a tree than Oberon with his new skin. I gave him several different shades of brown to simulate bark, and a vibrant green for his leaves. This also applies to his cape, and I really like how it turned out. I also went with the Hulta leg guard, since they seem to be the only armor pieces that seem organic besides the infested lilac set. I also gave him the mire, as in his color setup, it looks like the sword made of still living wood, and as a lot of birds return during the spring. I had to include a Para skin carrier to complete it. Thanks for the honorable mention last week. It's only pushing me to make these better and better. Well, congratulations, Kyle, and fantastic submission, man. It looks like the hard work has paid off, seeing as you've graduated from honorable mention to top 3 for your platform this week. Good job, man, and keep it up. Moving on, our next submission comes from user Rayadox. I call this entry Tree Frog Ivara. Rayadox says, when you set the theme spring, I got some flashbacks from when I was a little kid. I used to go out to the lake and watch the frogs jump around and try to catch them, so I thought about taking these memories into account. I then started looking through all the Warframes, but I couldn't find something satisfying. But when I saw Ivara, I thought about the Warframe stream when they announced her and told us she was influenced by tree frogs. This was a great opportunity to match a Warframe with some good old memories of mine. So for that reason, I chose Ivara. Thank you so much for submitting, Radox, and thank you so much for sharing that story with us. Moving on now, let's jump into some console submissions, starting with PS4. Now, I unfortunately didn't have enough submissions to do a top 3, so instead we'll do a top 2. Our first submission comes from Alacuba97. This is Alacuba's Rose-like Trinity, and he says, these colors inspired me to spring. Why? Well, the answer is easy. As we can see, this Trinity looks like a pink reddish rose surrounded with flowers. Spring is beautiful once it comes. The first thing I would look at is a pretty rose and think, how pretty is the spring? How pretty is the spring indeed, Alacuba, and thanks for submitting. Congrats on making it to the top 2. Moving on, our next submission comes from user Akram. I call this submission Spring Ember, and Akram says, this shows me spring because in spring it's all green and beautiful, so I thought to take the most sexy frame and make her schema spring. Very nice submission, Akram, and thank you to the PS4 users that participated. Next up, we'll be taking a look at the entries from Xbox One. Our first entry comes from user Max Payne. Here's what Max Payne has to say about this gorgeous Nyx Prime. He says, I chose to use Nyx and go with the green and yellow theme simply because when I think of spring, I think of it being a lot of greenery for grass and yellow because of the bright sunshine. I know there are a lot of other colors as well, such as blue for the sky, red, yellow, white, etc. for flower colors, but whenever I think of spring, I always think of sunny days and the sun really bringing out the green in the grass. Fantastic submission, Max, and thank you so much for participating. Moving on, our next submission comes from Mo Guns on the Xbox One. Mo Guns has submitted this beautiful Mag Prime, and this is what he has to say about it. Mo Guns here to bring you the beautifully inspired themed Mag Prime frame. I chose this color pattern based off the deadly nightshade flower, which is considered beautiful, but very dangerous. This frame definitely has a springtime beauty essence, but secretly one of the most dangerous to approach. Enjoy. Thank you so much for your entry, Mo Guns. I don't get many Mag Primes on this show, but when I do, I'm always really surprised, and that one was amazing. Our next entry comes from user Toxified Wolf. Let's take a look at his submission. Toxified Wolf brings us this beautiful spring-inspired Zephyr, and here's what he has to say about it. Since this week's subject is about spring, I chose Zephyr because when I think of spring, I think of the birds and the liveliness as well as purity. Because of these, I chose white and a light blue from the Easter color palette. In my photos, I chose to go to Earth to find some scenic locations and to show off the vegetation to give that look that the plants have been growing and there is no more snow. It's nice to see how beautiful Warframe can be. That Zephyr looked pretty fantastic, and that about covers it for all the submissions across all consoles, guys. Thank you all so much for submitting. I had a great time looking through these as always. Let's move on to our winners for each platform. And before we do that, I know I would normally show some honorable mentions, but honestly, I didn't get as many submissions as I had hoped this time, and I didn't really have enough to do an honorable mention for every platform. So with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and jump straight into the winners for each platform. Our first winner, coming from the PC platform, is Hazan. Congrats, dude. Your Saren looked amazing. I love the attention to detail, the color scheme, your reasoning for what you chose, and even the fact that you made your weapons fit the frame. Good job, and thank you for sharing this with us. Our next winner, coming from the PS4, is Alakuba97. Thank you for submitting your Spring Rose Trinity. It was beautiful, and congratulations on your win. Fantastic job representing the PS4. And last but not least, coming from the Xbox One platform, our winner is none other than Mo Guns. Thank you for submitting this amazing Mag Prime, and congrats on your win. Awesome job representing the Xbox community. And that pretty much covers that episode of Feenux Fashion Frames Fridays. Thank you all so much for your submissions and participation. I couldn't make this episode without you. As for future episodes, I think I'm going to put this series on hiatus for the time being. Don't worry though, I plan on bringing it back sometime in the future, but as for now, there are other things I want to focus on, and this series is very time consuming for me. Anyways, thank you guys so much as always for watching. I'll contact the winners personally with information on your prizes, and I'll see you guys at the next video.